Being a merc or edge runner is a tough task within Night City. To truly make some good eddies, you need to be doing some of the most dangerous jobs, fighting against either the fiercest gangs or the actual mega corporations for someone who has a personal grudge, or even a rival corporation looking to get some information on their competitors. Whilst you can go full on solo, organizing every gig for yourself, managing payments, finding contacts, and even acquiring your own weaponry that isn't on sale on the regular market, the pressure that'll put on you is far too high, and it's pretty unheard of in that scene. The way most edge runners work is by getting their gigs through external means, through what is known as a fixer. These fixers are skilled individuals who over the many years have built up a great database of contacts that pay good money for a job well done. But these fixers don't just offer gigs for edge runners, they also work as fencers and smugglers, as well as information brokers who deal on the black market. Because of how much power these individuals hold in their areas, if you were to go into this field and didn't get along with the fixers, the chances you'd be able to make it are extremely slim, as the many contacts on the corporate scene or on the street will just reject you, and on top of that, you wouldn't be able to really acquire any help from netrunners or techies when on a gig. Fixers organize that as well. There have been many famous fixers over the many years, but within the year of 2076 and 77, there are some really legendary ones who offer the best contracts out there. So in today's episode, I thought we'd look at all of the ones who are in Night City, or at least the ones in the past year or so, where they base themselves and what makes them stand out, including those from the external media. This is the story behind all of the fixers from Cyberpunk 2077. But before we begin, this video is brought to you by Factor. Summer is here and things can be pretty hectic at this time of year. I know for myself, I am seeing family almost every week and venturing out with my newborn. When scheduling is so packed, a quick and easy meal is exactly what I need in the evenings to relax, and thanks to Factor, that is exactly what you'll get. But it isn't just a standard quick meal. These meals are all dietitian approved, made with fresh ingredients that are never frozen and are ready in just 2 minutes, allowing you to have 35 options of tasty meals to choose from after a really busy day. There's also a lot of tasty breakfast options that are amazing as well, ranging from smoothies, which I'm always partial to at breakfast, juices, small bites, and so much more. So you are completely sorted for everything, allowing you to focus on your day ahead. So if you want some amazing meals for your busy summer, head over to factor75.com or use the link in the description below and use code WiseFish50 to get 50% off your first subscription box and 20% off your next month of orders. That's WiseFish50 off at factor75.com to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month of orders. A big thanks to Factor for sponsoring this video, and with that said, let's get back to it. We start our list with the man, the myth, the legends, the talk of the town, a man so notorious you can see him coming a mile away. No, that's not me fat shaming, I meant thanks to his bright gold cybernetic arm. Yes, it's Jackie Wells' idol, Dexter DeShawn. Believe it or not, Dexter DeShawn isn't the man he comes across as being. Whilst he looks like he's experienced it at all, lived the life of an edge runner, or at least with some gangs along the way, Dexter hasn't done a thing in his life that has ultimately made him stand out. As his database entry reads, he never shot hoops, jumped roofs, or pulled a trigger. That's right, he's never popped lead in his entire life. Well, until 2077 anyway. Nor did he ever put his fat ass in a netrunner's chair or splice cables in a sooty garage. In the end, Dexter grew up as a nobody and never knew what to do with his life. You could argue that maybe he was lazy, or you could just say he wanted it all but didn't want to risk everything he ever had to get it. What Dexter was and always has been good at, however, was speaking to people and creating relationships with them. No matter what the situation was or who they were, Dexter always had a silver tongue and can talk his way into business deals, into trade links, or simply to give up information that was valuable to him, meaning that he could rise up through the ranks, becoming an extremely valuable fixer within Night City and become rich and memorable without doing any of the hard work. After grinding away and making contacts, Dexter would become an extremely prominent fixer within Night City, but that was only for mercs that were somewhat new to the game. Whilst yes, Dexter was renowned, he was a small-time fixer still, compared to some of the big big guns throughout the rest of the city, the ones that we will be exploring in a bit. And that's not to say he wasn't influential. He certainly could give you a good reference and good jobs to keep you afloat if you got on his good side and did the gigs he wanted. But to ultimately become a Night City legend like so many wanted, Dexter was just a stepping stone that looked like a mountain. One of the things that made Dexter stand out was that he didn't look at previous experience or data gathered on an individual. He picked out his mercs primarily on his intuition, and because of that, his crew always changed. It was documented that within 2075, Dexter left Night City to go on vacation, but that true reason is still unknown, with the vacation only being a rumor. Reyes, otherwise known as Simon Randall from the gang known as Maelstrom, believed that Dexter leaving the city was due to some of his involvement within Pacifica, making some powerful enemies who simply just wanted him dead, and leaving the city meant that the heat would just die down. It is unknown what the real reason is, but when it's coming from someone like Maelstrom and knowing the history of how Pacifica is run, it's pretty safe to say I don't think Reyes would be lying about that. I'd like to think he tried to deal with Kurt Hansen on the black market, which ended up going badly, and because of the links Kurt has throughout Night City, like the NCPD commissioner for example, it meant Dexter had to flee for a couple of years at least. Regardless, coming back to Night City in 2077 would be a bad call, as he would ultimately set up the terribly flawed from the start gig of the Kenbuki Plaza heist, hiring Jackie Wells, V and Netrunner T-Bug to do it, despite never working with these lot before or even knowing how they work in a situation. This would go terribly wrong, as all of them would be exposed and hunted down, with T-Bug being wiped out and Jackie dying on the journey back to the Fixer. Dexter would meet his maker when Goro Takemura, Saburo Arasaka's bodyguard, would track him and V's body down and kill him immediately with a single shot to the head after begging for his life. His body would lie there in the junkyard in an undignified manner, with his trusted, iconic pistol known as Plan B laying by his side. So in the end, a lot of talk goes out around this Fixer, but is Dexter DeShawn a good one? Well, if you want some good paid gigs every now and then he certainly has some good contacts. But ultimately, when the going gets tough, Dexter doesn't really have a clue what he's doing. Going on intuition to pick out mercs for gigs just seems like a stupid idea, as they could completely ruin everything, including his reputation, and his planning skills are not to the highest standard of some of the other fixers going around, missing out important details on some clients or what you are actually going to be doing during the gig. To me personally, Dexter is all about image. He looks and sounds like someone who is the big time, someone you would want to be, to look up to and to inspire to be like, and it works because Jackie idolizes him as a legend. But ultimately, it's all for show, and when it comes to actual work, Dexter is well out of his depth as a fixer within Night City. Despite living out within the Badlands, the people out there still need someone to organize their gigs for them and to find sellers, contractors and more to help them and their nomad clans or just their small community of people. Luckily for the people just outside of Night City, they would have the brilliant fixer known as the Mad Coyote, whose real name is Dakota Smith, who is officially a member of the nomad clan known as the Aldecados, but as well as that, she is also a member of the Northern California Native American tribe named the Pomo tribe. It is learned through our interactions with Dakota that she is actually the eldest daughter of the Pomo tribe, as well as being the oldest fixer within the Badlands, although who the other fixers are out here in the Badlands, we do not currently know yet. It is unknown exactly what Dakota's past actually consisted of or how she became a fixer, but it is said that she lost touch with reality right after the Unification War. Whether she took part in it is actually unknown, but I'd imagine witnessing the static world around her destroying the landscape did not sit right with her. After this event, Dakota would go on to decipher the secret language of smoke, and while she's not working on fixer business, Dakota focuses on this new skill. This focusing might have been what makes her stand out as a fixer in Night City, as she is extremely perceptive and everyone who does a gig for her has to do it perfectly. She is also never to be double-crossed or betrayed, because to put it plainly, Dakota would never go behind someone's back, never has and never will, and if anyone did go behind her back, they would be left to the vultures in the middle of the Badlands desert. The war might have also affected the way she breathes as well. That or climate change certainly affected her, as she does not go anywhere without her oxygen tank strapped to her chest. This device allows her to breathe in pure oxygen from a canister at all times, most likely due to her lungs not working fully, or maybe due to the effects of the war or some birth defects. Dakota, like many nomads, loves her cars, and because of that runs her own garage out within Rocky Ridge Plains that displays her name out there in big bold neon lights. Dakota is a different type of nomad, however, as she describes herself as being a static, which is a derogatory word for people who live in just one location or in only one accommodation, usually city dwellers. Dakota clearly doesn't like people who are static, agreeing with the mindset of the rest of the nomads, but states that they are necessary as they are the ones who take care of the ones who come and go. And this is exactly where she makes her eddies, by looking after all of the other nomads who like to up and leave every chance they can. She is a bridge between the two cultures, and without her, the nomads would be extremely distant from the static community. That said, Dakota doesn't seem too fond of anyone who chooses to leave their pack, seeing it as a betrayal of the nomad lifestyle, and despite what reason they leave, be that to avoid an enemy, seek revenge, or work opportunities, Dakota believes there is no real excuse to leave behind your clan. You should always work together with them as they are family. There is only one regret Dakota has in her life, and that is she never was able to work with the tech specialist known as Iris Tanner, as she had many failed attempts to get her to notice and agree to helping her. Dakota would compare her with a mayor and would be on her list of people to get on board at some point. If Dakota were to work closely with V, they would be able to find that Iris would be captured by wraiths after thinking they would be a fine group of people to do business with. Oh, how wrong she was. This gave Dakota the perfect opportunity to save her life and force her into working with her, knowing that Iris owed her a favor now. If V were to save Iris's life from the wraiths, she would be brought back to Dakota's garage, where she would once again try and convince her to work with her. Ultimately, Iris would still reject her, but realize she had to repay the favor to some extent. So Dakota's biggest regret, or find, would be a success in the end, I guess. But regardless of this, Dakota is one of the best fixers out there, and if you are out within the Badlands, either as a nomad or as a static, she is the person to contact if you ever need anything out there. Just make sure you are honest with her regarding your intentions, or she will see right through you. Dino Dinovic is a proud rocker boy who lives within the heart of the city centre out within downtown. This location allows him to get some of the best corporate gigs around for some very big clients such as Biotechnica, for example. He is also the bassist for the band known as the Glory Hole Bandits, who always sell their tickets to their concerts, yet if you actually ask anyone if they've actually seen this lot play live, no one seems to be able to answer yes. So where these tickets actually go, no one really knows. When Dino was a lot younger, and I mean a lot younger, he was one of the lucky ones to go and see Johnny Silverhand's band of Samurai live. This gig was one where Johnny threatened to severely injure a corpo he had kidnapped and was keeping backstage, and said the only way he wouldn't injure them would be if they got at least 3 encores. A bold yet somewhat mad move from this older rocker boy, but one that was certainly of memory for Dino, as whilst he can't fully remember this experience due to his age, admired his actions as a form of style. In the 2070s, Dino would go on to send his girlfriend of the time known as Callie to infiltrate the gang known as the Mox and steal a precious data shard from them so that he could sell it on the market to provide them with some good eddies. An easy enough plan, but it went horribly wrong, as Callie returned with a Maelstrom gang member known as Screw, who had also been sent there by his gang to steal the shard as well, and in the process save Callie's life, which in Maelstrom's eyes had gone against what they stood for, and he had betrayed them. Now that Screw was out of his gang, Dino and his girlfriend brought him into the deal, promising 10% of the sale of the data shard and getting him fully patched up by the doc they knew well, which was this guy from Edge Runners. Later that day, however, Dino overheard Screw talking to Callie about taking him out. With that, Dino took matters into his own hands, promising the two that he would return to them with the promised money, but at the same time promised Maelstrom that he would return Screw to them as well as half of the money from the sale, giving over his traitorous girlfriend Callie as insurance for if he didn't make good of his promise. In the end, Dino did not return to save Callie and pocketed all of the money from the sale of the data shard, getting rid of the two that betrayed him and given him enough eddies to set himself up as his own businessman in his own bar that is called the Electric Orgasm. Dino is a pretty standard fixer for Night City. He offers up the job to the mercs and they either take it or they don't. If they start asking questions about the morals of it, he doesn't want anything to do with them. Again, you either take the job or you don't. It doesn't matter who's paying at the end of the day. That said, the client is always right with Dino, and if it's a choice of the merc and the client, he will always side with the client, not like in any merc that botches the job or damages the client's name. Best thing to do with the Dino gig is do it exactly how it's been set out and not try things your own way. By 2077, Dino is a proud Night City fixer who is extremely happy that he is living in downtown, which is now, in his words, on fire, thanks to the arrival of Hanako Arasaka, as her arrival has allowed him to get a ton of new contracts that he can boost his business with. Not only that, but he can also organize a mean party, as he has some fantastic contacts in his books to make a good event, such as Kerry Uridine, who Dino says likes him very much. Ultimately, Dino is a tough rocker who is also in the pockets of the corporations, allowing for that perfect balance of anarchy and high-paying gigs. If you were to venture into the city centre, Dino is the man to friend, as he can also, like I mentioned, throw together a really great party as well. Arthur Cormac was a gigantic man who served as a fixer for anyone who needed him, mainly dealing with gangs, but was hopeful to deal with people at the top of corporations such as Militech. Cormac's story would start and end when he and a team of two, including a girl named Oriona and a man named Kyle, ventured to the Valentinos to help them in their goal of stopping Militech from destroying a housing block containing a ton of old folks who would have lost all of their homes. Stating they had some links to people in Militech who are on the city council, the three would go on a mission to stop this construction to help the Valentinos out, making a blood bond with them. Eventually, the three would find that the man they were looking for was named Jack Lars, and that mostly he was an ordinary individual, apart from one perversion where he lures girls into making XBDs with him, only for him to reveal they were just part of a peep show for his friends, making sure he captures the degrading nature of the event and every emotion she feels at that point. Finding this out, Cormac hoped they could kill this sick individual, but knew they couldn't because it would point the finger towards them and put all of the heat on them. However, Cormac did suggest they took out all of his sick friends involved in this scheme, venturing to the hotel he used for the XBDs and taking them out whilst they were in the act. This gig, however, was just the start of something much bigger and was more of a decoy from what the member of the Valentinos really wanted to do. After this event, Oriona, one of the three members, would go on to be killed by an individual simply stating they know everything. This led to Cormac and Carl to be targeted by Oriona's mother as she hunted down whoever was involved in the murder of her own daughter. Eventually, Cormac would be left alone, but now had Oriona's mother hunting him down after being told everything that had happened by Kyle that she had now brutally killed. Heading to the gang member who offered them the gig in the first place, Cormac inquired who this lady was and her history within Night City, with the gang member telling him he had been looking for her for years, and the only way to get her was through Oriona, who Cormac had double-crossed and sold her to his gang, gaining himself a nice little bonus. Now realizing he had to stop this lady from finding him, Cormac and his new crew tracked her down, speaking to Victor Vector to see if he had heard anything, but sadly he hadn't. But Cormac spread the word that someone was coming to get her and end her once and for all. Eventually, the mother of Oriona, Maria, would go on to set up a trap, getting her doc to lure them into the No-Tell Motel to meet him and take him out, utilizing a weapon featuring a scope that could see targets from the other side of a wall. Coming face to face with Maria, Cormac would look to be the ultimate winner, explaining to her that he did not kill her, he was only hired to get her for his client El Sombreron, and as soon as that name dropped, Cormac would be killed. What was a notorious fixer in Night City that had amassed a vast crew of contacts would be taken out then and there in the No-Tell Motel, all because he sold out his friend and colleague for a few more eddies. A classic tale of someone destroying everything just for a brief glimpse of power and fame in Night City. Whilst not the most renowned Night City fixer, his story was certainly worth exploring, as what he did played major effects in the Valentino community. Mikhail Akulov isn't exactly a fixer you'll meet within Night City on your day-to-day. That's mainly because he's not a Night City native. He's actually from the Soviet Union and is a damn good fixer out there. Technically, he's actually more than just a fixer and is a diplomatic businessman. And that is exactly why he is in Night City in the first place. At least that's why he says anyway. The rumor is he has been brought here from the Soviet Union as he was seduced by the freedom and capitalism the city brings. This rumor wasn't exactly true, and the true reason for his arrival in the city was due to a major arms business deal with Arasaka that would either be between one of the two nations of the Soviet Union or China, with the one who didn't get the contract being at a severe military disadvantage. Akulov would be the man to win that contract for the Soviet Union, being personally hired by the Secretary General of the Soviet Union. Together with his assistant, the two would base themselves within the Konbeki Plaza to speak with the Arasaka representatives at the same time as the heist would take place involving Jackie and V. As the heist went ahead and Saburo Arasaka would meet his end at the hands of his own son, the whole place went on lockdown, leading to Akulov and his assistant to flee and postpone the negotiations. Here they would move to the penthouse suite within the hotel ratio, and there the negotiations continued for weeks. Unfortunately for Akulov, Arasaka would not budge any further and they had to come up with a new solution. Here he would request his government sweeten their offer to Arasaka to make sure they got it before the Chinese. Whilst at the same time, he would go on to hire a netrunner named Shelma to monitor Chinese activity on the local net and keep up to date on where China were with their own negotiations. Unfortunately, China was expecting this and burnt Shelma whilst in the net without Akulov knowing about it, meaning he was now completely exposed. With China now having the upper hand, an unnamed colonel in the Chinese military would hire a Night City fixer named Regina Jones, who based herself out within Watson, to bug Okulov's car to monitor all of his conversations and keep tabs on his negotiations. Here Regina would hire the expertise of V to bug the car and to later steal an encrypted data shard that had the negotiations with Arasaka on it from his hotel suite. What Okulov's fate would be up to V's decision, but in the end, China would be victorious thanks to the better fixer of Night City that we will explore now. As mentioned, Regina Jones is the local fixer based out within Watson, and as you've probably guessed from her involvement in the gig with the Soviet Union fixer, she is of Chinese heritage. Regina is a former media worker, or still is, as she says you never really leave that industry as information is always vital. But she did used to work for the World News Service, or WNS, mentoring fellow journalist Max Jones, and then later for FTF Radio. Her time at FTF Radio was good, but an independent radio station is always doomed to fail in Night City, and unfortunately it would go on to be bought by the media conglomerate News 54. At the same point during her time as a simple journalist, Regina supposedly needed help, and fast too, and because of it became in debt with the Chinese officials, meaning that for years she would have to pay that debt off. But now with that debt paid and Regina not liking the idea of being run by these massive corpos, especially after she worked in WNS, she decided it was finally time to leave and start her career on her own, utilizing the contacts she had made over the years in the media world, contacts such as the highest ranking corpos to the lowliest dealers, gangers, mercs, bums and junkies. To these individuals, Regina has always been herself, and she is a true fighter and a girl truly from the streets. The one thing these contacts say is different is that once she bought gossip and sold news, but now as a fixer, she spins both. Not long into her running as a fixer, Regina would go on to win a unique AI enhanced gun that would be named as Skippy within a poker game. But her time with this friendly firearm didn't last long, as it quickly got stolen from her and she never saw it again, until V would brandish it in front of her as their new owner. Who stole it is unknown, but just looking at this gun, is it any surprise it got stolen? I mean, Skippy is awesome. It's also unknown why she wears the eye patch, however a giant scar underneath it would imply a couple of things. Either she once had a camera piece of cyberware attached to her eye that was taken out after she left her life as a journalist, or she was attacked and maimed whilst on an information gather, or even by the cyber psycho she encountered on the street. Either way, we might never know what the true reason is behind her eye patch and scar underneath it, but we can jump to some conclusions. Now she bases herself within the Yaber tower in Kabuki, Watson, which is heavily guarded in case anyone came to attack her or steal her information, and only those who have been registered into her database will be welcomed in, or they'll be torn to pieces by the turrets. Her new focus, other than handing out gigs to mercs, is on cyberpsychosis and what is causing so many in Night City to suffer from it, essentially a disease caused by malfunctioning cyberware. Through the help of V, Regina would be able to analyze everyone who is currently on the wanted list and either shut them down for good or practice some new remedies for their conditions. Ultimately, Regina wants to help every single one of them, but that's easier said than done, as V would have to deal with maniacs charging at them with mantis blades and many other deadly pieces of hardware. But regardless of V's choices, Regina is a truly loyal friend and fixer who is only out there to try and do what is right for her community, and with her help, she can solve the cyberpsychosis problem and gather intel on what's going on with the corporations and on the street. Sebastian Ibarra is the local fixer for the Haywood area, once being an incredibly honourable priest for the community and gang known as the Valentinos. Serving as an elder figure for everyone to go to, Sebastian was hailed as such a brilliant man. However, at some point in the Valentinos' history, a massive bloodbath would happen within Motosilo, which affected many of the people who witnessed it or even heard about it. What that bloodbath was, we do not know yet, sadly, but it definitely changed Sebastian Ibarra, as he went from being a priest for this gang to being a fixer, doing gigs to earn eddies and make contacts with those at the high end of Night City society, most likely to help build his community into something better. This was shown as when he first set up within Haywood as a fixer, all of the jobs he got offered were given to the mercs and edge runners from the Valentinos. But after a while, the jobs got bigger and more frequent, that eventually he would start to agree contracts with rival gang members such as the 6th Street, making him almost untouchable with many people, because without him, everyone would be without work. He has solidified himself as a true powerhouse in this area. If you were to go against his morals and code of honor, then Sebastian will most likely never work with you ever again, as he prides himself on this code of honor and lives by it. On top of that, whilst he spends all of his days with the Valentinos, he actually does not prioritize any particular gang or group, maybe because to him, everyone is equal in the eyes of God, but also because keeping everyone happy means that Night City can work together in a nice, healthy balance of power. Over within Westbrook, we have the fixer of Wakako Okada, who is also known to many as the Lady of Westbrook. Wakako would be born out within the Kansai region of Japan, but did not stay there for her education. Instead, she moved out to Night City to study at the university to pursue a career within medicine. During her time here, she would go on to meet her first husband, Hiroto Miyamoto. As the Fourth Corporate War came to an eventual end, Wakako started working for the giant corporation of Kuroshi as a medtech, where she would be able to boost her career and also focus on her new family life as well. During this time, however, Wakako and her husband would help his childhood friend and high-ranking member of the Tiger Claws, Hayato Nakagawa, when their relationship with Roiko Fujiwara was called off by their respective families and gangs. Here, Wakako and Hiroto worked as their liaisons during their difficult time, trying to work out as a way to help these two lovers. As things got heated during this time, Hayato started having trouble with his family's inheritance, and because of it, was now a hot target for all of his enemies and rival gangs. Because of this, Wakako and her whole family also got targeted, leading to only her surviving these attacks, and now filled her with rage. Eventually, Hayato became the main leader of the Tiger Claws, and as a reward for helping him, provided Wakako with everything she needed and made her a member of the gang as well. Now a member of this gang, she would also become a confidant of Ryoko, but she would want Wakako to leave her job within Kuroshi and come and work for her as her right hand at the Nakagawa Foundation. But despite everything she had done for the two lovers, Wakako declined this invitation. After a few years after all of this, Wakako would go on to become her own person and become a local fixer, possibly thanks to her links within the Tiger Claws, but also the corporate world as well. She was massively respected here within Westbrook and had the full backing of her Tiger Claws thanks to her history, but also because she provided them with a ton of high-paying gigs. In 2076, Wakako would meet the new up-and-coming edge runner leader known as David Martinez, where she would offer his crew a mission to infiltrate Totentans and rescue Isabella Morgan from the gang of Maelstrom. She made one big request during this, however, and that was to have a young merc known as Julio join them to learn the ropes. Whilst this overall job was a success, unfortunately, Julio would go on to be killed in the process as he would activate an explosive trap, blowing him up instantly. By 2077, Wakako would base herself within the pachinko parlor within Jig Street, Japantown. By this point in her life, she had had 5 husbands who have all died now. No, not by her hands anyway, or so she says. And she also has 9 sons who are now all high-ranking members of the Tiger Claws. With that though, Wakako keeps them all in check as well as keeping a close eye on them, in case they are a target of another gig provided by another fixer within this city. That said, she isn't fully loyal to the Tiger Claws, as she believes a lot of them are just stupid and greedy and has no time for people like that in her life. She also absolutely hates the corporation of Arasaka now, all because they were responsible for the loss of one of her grandchildren, and now tries to seek revenge on them any chance she can without her getting into the line of sight. Wakako is majorly respected by all those within the mercenary scene, but also those high up in the corporations. Going to meet her is like getting into a cage with a lioness, some say, as she is very polite, but she is also thinking about who is next on the list and when she can get the one up on someone. This goes into her work style, as any gig given by Wakako is expected to be done immediately and is expected to go flawlessly. If it's not, she will never work with you ever again, and that is certainly why she is at the top of the food chain and is one of the best and most respected fixers in this city. Rogue Amendiares is a Night City legend, and honestly not much needs to be said about who she is and what she's done in her life. If you do want a full rundown, check out my Legends of Night City video where her full story is explored. However, to keep it short, she is the queen of the fixers and resides within the VIP club known as the Afterlife. After being involved in so many secret operations before and during the Fourth Corporate War, Rogue has some of the biggest names as part of her contacts, including some within Militech and even Adam Smasher, who she has worked with at some point after the Fourth Corporate War. She also has some of the best crew members working for her, meaning that if you are given a gig by Rogue, you know it will be top shelf stuff, and you will be provided with some of the best warriors and edge runners out there to get the job done. In the end, if you were to go and meet with Rogue, you know you have pretty much made it into this job, and if you were to be given a gig by her, then she definitely respects you and your work, something that both V and David Martinez have done in their time. She is the queen of the fixers for a reason, and arguably the best fixer on this list thanks to her incredible legendary past. Out within Santo Domingo, we have the local fixer and now car salesman known as Muamar El Capitan Reyes. Reyes would be born within Rancho Coronado and grew up there as a kid. But this was not a good childhood, as Reyes remembers the corporation at Arasaka dumping tons of toxic waste into their drinking water and poisoned tons within his area. Something this corporation is still doing to this day that absolutely disgusts Reyes and fuels his want to get revenge on the corporation and restore power to his people within Rancho Coronado, so they don't have to suffer what he went through as a kid. Leaving the area of Rancho Coronado, Reyes would become a corpo for a good while before giving it up to work as his own man and become a fixer. Realizing he would be able to set the rules of the game and do whatever he wanted, he was his own boss. As a fixer, Reyes would go on to help his fellow man, earning him a lot of admiration and helping him get his nickname of El Capitan. However, with that said, his street reputation has taken a big hit, which might be a reference to the difficulty of his character. Regardless of what people think of him, Reyes admires Santo Domingo thanks to the people living within it, who have fended off the gangs and corpos who have tried to completely take over the whole area. The people are real and are honest about how they deal with things or feel about things, with Reyes claiming they are the blood and guts of Night City. That said, Reyes is the one who has to solve situations here, with gangs causing trouble and corpos being dodgy, and sorting these things certainly help him boost his finances as well as his reputation as someone who really cares about the everyday person. Whilst on his mission to bring the power back to the people, Reyes also really dislikes the NCPD, believing they silenced the people of the Santo Domingo district and involved themselves within things that didn't ask for their involvement, and actually takes away work for himself. That said, he will work with the NCPD if the need arises, mainly if there are eddies to be made with them, most likely from the corrupt officers within the force. One NCPD officer he works closely with is Aiden Daniels, who grew up with him in Rancho Coronado Coronado. The two vastly different individuals, one being a fixer and one an NCPD officer, both decided now was the time to get back at the corporation who wronged them, and would actively plan to steal medical supplies from Arasaka to give to the people from Rancho Coronado, especially the kids there, and save them from the toxic waste being pumped into it. But the two couldn't do this alone, however, as Reyes would reach out to his loyal merc of V to help out with this personal gig of his. With the gig's success, Reyes would feel like he had made a meaningful change to his birthplace and would reward V with a beautiful Herrera Outlaw Whaler car from his new business recently set up named Auto Fixer, which deals with the latest, best looking cars that you can buy, even ones with guns attached to them. Overall, El Capitan is an honorable man who truly believes he is in the business to make life better for the common Joe walking Santo Domingo. However, with that said, he's still a rough money focused individual who would take any gig if he believes it will do well, but with the help of V, maybe he can really make the difference that Night City ultimately needs. Faraday might not be alive anymore within 2077, but I still felt he was worth a mention as he was certainly a big fixer in this city. That said, he has a lot of similarities to Dexter DeShawn, where he comes across as the biggest fixer ever, but makes too many mistakes along the way, expecting things to go his way. Faraday was a ruthless fixer who worked solely for Militech and was a proud corpo because of it. Living in Santo Domingo, it would be his interactions with Maine and his crew that would ultimately lead to his very quick rise and dramatic fall. Ultimately, if you have watched Edgerunners, you will know of Faraday's story. There sadly isn't much extra information about him at this stage anyway, but he is extremely precise, and if he plans something, he needs to know every single detail about it, be that what cyberware his Edgerunners are using and where they stand politically or mentally. He is extremely cold with everyone he meets and doesn't like to form a relationship with anyone he works with, mainly so he feels comfortable pulling all the strings he needs to get the job done. Thanks to his amazing planning skills, he always lands on his feet until he died thanks to the hands of both Adam Smasher and David Martinez, as he would fall from the top of Arasaka Tower and end up as a bloody pool on the ground of the corporate center. I wish I had more to say about Faraday. I just think he's a really good fixer that fit Night City perfectly, and Giancarlo Esposito was a perfect fit for the voice of him. Absolutely chilling voice, making him a terrifying presence when in a room doing business with him. Following on from a fixer that is not to be messed with and is certainly a presence to be feared, we have Wade Bleecker, also known as Mr. Hands. Wade, as he was once known, worked as a high-ranking corporate worker for the energy company of Petrochem. Wade was living the high life here, seeing absolutely tons of success, and might have been responsible for the investment in Night City at some point, although that is not stated anywhere, just a theory. But this was to all come crumbling down for him when Petrochem decided to do a full management shake-up in which Wade was chosen to be sacrificed for the corporation. Not just gotten rid of, I actually mean sacrificed. But Wade was able to avoid the assassination attempt from the higher-ups at Petrochem, but now had to live his life with a massive bounty permanently on his head, and because of it, he had to run from everything and disappear from the world, leaving behind his wife and daughter. Here he looked to set himself up within the lawless lands of Pacifica, where the corporations fear to go, as well as the NCPD, and changed his face and name, becoming what everyone knows him as now, Mr. Hands. With Pacifica his new world, Mr. Hands got setting up his new job as being a fixer, setting up gigs for the gang members and mercs venturing into the area, utilizing some of his corporate links from before, but without risking anything to get him caught up with Petrochem again. Thanks to how well he worked, Mr. Hands gained a reputation as being the most secretive fixer in Night City, and that made him so much more appealing to many mercs. The only way you could contact him was through the holo, and no one went to see him at all. This was mainly because this was how he preferred to work, never getting close or attached to anyone, but also so no one could take his image and location to Petrochem for a vast amount of eddies. Some mercs were more popular with Mr. Hands, such as V, who Mr. Hands was able to help them out with their gig with the Voodoo Boys and eventually getting them into the area of Dogtown. But again, he liked to keep to himself for the most part. This all changed in the second half of 2077. After moving into the club The Heavy Hearts in Dogtown, Wade would become a aware that the president of the NUSA had crashed in Dogtown, and this was his perfect opportunity to create chaos and benefit from the mess. Realizing the best way to do this was through his loyal merc of V became the first person in a long time to meet Mr. Hands face to face as he sat there in a room covered in Egyptian symbology within the Heavy Hearts VIP lounges. After that meeting, V would be able to try and shut down the leader of this district known as Kurt Hansen, and with his death out of the way, Wade could start planning who could take over the location, letting V pick up the correct candidate, which was Chester Bennett, one of Mr. Hands' puppets, so he could pull all of the strings and turn Dogtown into his kingdom. If V didn't choose his puppet, however, he would be infuriated by their actions, and knowing Mr. Hands would be planning V's downfall at some point. But ultimately, Mr. Hands is a true corpo, and nothing will ever change that. He looks out for the perfect opportunities to grab power and eddies to help bolster his career. He is cool-headed, calculated, and always focused on the job at hand. His secrecy has made him such an interesting figure and has become somewhat of a Night City legend because of it. And personally, he is the perfect depiction of what a Night City fixer really is, and that's why he ends this list of fixers. And that is every fixer of Night City apart from one man known as Mr. Blue Eyes, who technically is a fixer to some extent, as he does get V their final gig to infiltrate the space casino of the Crystal Palace. However, not many people actually know of his existence in the city, and it is unknown where he bases himself or what he actually does in his day-to-day. There are tons of theories about who he is and what he wants, but that will have to be a subject for another day. For now, I want to thank you all for watching this video and let me know who your favorite fixer is in the comments below. A massive thank you to my patrons who continue to support this channel and allow me to make these videos on a regular basis, including my small fishes, my big fishes, Greg and Noxvox, my YouTube channel Wise Ones, Sith Lord 906, Video Gamer 75 and RIP City, my sharks, Jason X117, Alfred Correa, Nia Park, and our new guy Jack Thompson, and my megalodons Sinus and Hazy Thoughts. Also, thanks to this video's sponsor Factor. Make sure you make the most of the discount by clicking the link below or using code WiseFish50 to get some tasty meals delivered straight to your door. And with that said, thank you so much for watching once again, and I shall see you all in the next video. Cheers.